Hi everyone, I'm really excited for today's video where we are going to take a look at the how to play with white against the Owen Defense. So this is part 2, I did part 1, you can check out this video in my playlist. b6, d4, bishop b7, bishop d3 is what I recommend, and if, well, let's say e6, then knight f3. I explained to you why in the first video. And here I didn't cover yet, so I found some sources online, some streamers for example, who recommended the move pawn to c5. Now, I was thinking for a bit, so you could play c3. What I don't really like about c3, however, is that you will end up in some French type position. Let's say this, then we advance. So you see this is the typical French type position where you can go, let's say h4, h5, so it's the typical stuff. The problem I think is that Black might also be a French player and be comfortable and prepared in these lines. So here I'm going to recommend to you the extremely nice move pawn to d5. And I took the liberty of giving it a double exclamation mark. I really think it's that good. I think if you learn this line against the Owen's defense when they play with e6 and c5, then you will score a ton of wins using this. So the point being that first of all, Black can't really ignore the pawn. The problem is that if he ignores it, then we can play with c4 and protect this pawn, and maybe also play with queen e2. And so that means that Black more or less has to take, and after takes, bishop takes d5. We gain another tempo on the bishop with knight to c3. And as you can see here, we have three pieces developed, one ready to join the action very quickly. We are one step away from castling. Meanwhile, we are attacking the bishop, which means he has to move. And you will have to find, well, Black will have to find the move bishop to e6. If he doesn't, so let's say bishop b7. So after bishop b7, here you can pause the video if you want and try to find the winning ID for white. So take your time, think about it for 4 minutes or so, and if you have trouble, then I will give you a little hint. So actually the ID that white has is something very simple, tactical ID that many new players will try in many openings, and often then it's not good, but here it is good. What am I talking about? I am talking, of course, about, I'm going to show the line now, about bishop to f4, threatening to jump into b5, targeting this weak square c7. So if Black plays a6, then you can also take a minute to think about what you do next. I'm just going to show the move right now. So the move is queen to e2. So this file is also open. After Black blocks, white can quickly castle, develop, bring their rooks to the central files. Very classic stuff. And well, Black can try bishop takes f3, but also it doesn't help that his rook here is undefended on this diagonal. Also thanks to the knight not being developed yet, right? If the knight would be on c6, for example, the queen would protect the rook. So here Black might try something like knight c6, then we can go g4, threatening to kick away the knight. Black can decide to bother us for a moment with knight d4, but we can just shuffle the queen away to h4. And let's say black wants to get out of this spin. Also, I guess at some moment some rook takes e7 ideas might also be pretty interesting. So let's say king f8, g5, the knight has to go back, and now the very strong move g6, with the point being that after this we can take with the bishop, since the pawn here is spinned, and well, this position is just terrible. So after a6, so we played bishop f4 here, and after a6, preventing the knight to jump in, queen e2. Black might try to block with his knight, but it's no better. We just follow the same recipe. G6 is what black might try to get his bishop out this way and get the king to safety. But just rook e1. Let's take a look what happens if black blocks with the queen. So I want you to think a bit about what you should do here, and try to come up with both what you should do with the king and some follow-up moves. Which threats can you make then? So if you thought about it for a bit, I'm going to show you the moves now. So king f1 is very strong, with the point being that once this queen moves, there is still this open file to attack, that we can use to attack the black king. And let's say knight f6, then we have knight b5. So these squares are still weak. And if knight a6, we can play knight d6, king b8, knight b7. So the bishop here on b7 is unprotected, which helps us as well when this knight jumps to d6. It's often attacking this bishop on b7. So that means that and let's say if instead a6, then you can put the queen on d2. Now this is threatened, the queen can go away, but after rook e1, well, it's the same thing. You can bring all your pieces into the attack. This position, as you can see, is just terrible for black. Something similar happens if black plays queen e7, then we can also play king f1. And let's say black gets a little bit more clever and plays bishop e6, blocking this e file. Then we can still play bishop f4, and after a6, go with bishop e4. This diagonal is still weak. And let's say knight c6, then we can jump with the knight to d5. Bishop takes. Let's say black tries to escape by castling long. It won't really help him that much. Since we have knight g5, we are threatening this pawn on f7. And let's say knight h6, then we can go knight e4. Again, these squares are weak. This square d6 is very weak. Let's say knight f5, then we can chase the knight away. Once it goes to d4, we play knight c6, and we will, I think, at least win a queen here. Since if the king goes away, we have this discovery. If same here. So black has nothing better than to give up 2 pieces for the queen, and obviously this is totally winning for us as well. So now let's take a look at the main move, which is bishop to e6. So after bishop to e6, again the idea is similar. You want to use these weak squares. You want to use your pieces to target these weak squares. So bishop f4 is the move, and let's say black plays a6. Then you can play queen to e2, knight to f6, let's say. Yeah, most people will play that. Castle's long, so long castle, bishop e7. And now the very strong move, knight to e5. Here most people castled, but I think it's not the greatest move, since we can immediately strike with g4. And after d6, I want you to pause the video and think about what you should do with the knight. Should you retreat it, or can you maybe make a threat of your own and try to calculate some lines? So here the strongest move is pawn to g5, with the point being that after pawn takes knight, and there is actually a double attack. So this one is immediately apparent, but there's also a hidden tactic in the form of bishop takes h7. So after bishop takes h7, king takes, and I guess rook takes would be the simplest, but maybe there's even some mating ideas here. Well, I guess this is good enough for the win. If you want to, you can check it. Maybe we'll let your engine run a little longer. Maybe he will find some mating sequence. Anyway, so you can see that bishop e6 doesn't really solve all of black's problems. Finally, let's see what happens if black ignores our pawn move. So if he plays, for example, knight f6, then we can play queen e2 is possible. We can also play c2, c4. I think that's even stronger. Getting some kind of King's Indian type of pawn structure, I guess, where black's pieces are very poorly placed. Normally he would have bishop on g7 ready. He would be able to play f5 easily. Here none of that is the case. His bishop is blocked. So this is really a sad position for black. I think the best thing he could try is to close up the position with d6 and a later e5. But like I said, it just gives him a very sad version of King's Indian types of positions. So yeah, it's not something I think black should go for. Let's say many people took here, then you just take with the e-pawn, and after bishop e6 is just a weird try. I guess trying to be clever, but that really doesn't work. You can just develop normally, and yeah. So as you can see, these dark squares, they're still weak. And this position is just sad for black. I guess one thing you should be careful about is not to blunder any mate on h2. But for the rest, I don't know. See here, plus 2.8. Nothing to brag about for black. So in my opinion, d6 followed by e5 is probably his best try. But then white can white is just faster with his pawn breaks here. He can play f4, maybe h4, maybe support it with g3. Maybe put an when white is castled, put a knight on e1, or maybe once this pawn moves, put a knight on h2, push f4. Yeah, I don't know. Really don't know why black would play like this. Same here, queen c7, c4. Yeah, it's the same story. This position is just very sad for black. But I guess it's better than just outright losing. I think practically speaking, black is all but lost here. Finally, I decided to have Stockfish and Komodo play some games in this variation. I guess by now it won't surprise you that Black didn't win any of these games. So e4, b6, d4, should b7, bishop d3, e6, knight f3, c5. I entered d5, and from here on out the engines were on their own. So Komodo accepted the pawn sacrifice, knight c3, bishop e6, the best move, and after bishop 4 a6, queen to e2 was played, getting ready here for long castle, pinning this bishop. Also, I guess putting some more pressure here on this diagonal and on his 6. The game continued, knight f6, long castle, knight e5. If I'm not mistaken, we saw that in the previous section, in one of the previous sections of the video. b5, and now g4. This is pretty typical that when this knight is on e5, it becomes possible to play g4 without actually sacrificing a pawn. c4, bishop to f5. Now black finally castled, queen f3. So making a use of this spin here. Black doesn't care, he just continues pushing his pawns. Knight e2, queen a5. And here Stockfish decided to grab this rook, let black take on a2. First of all, Komodo made an intermediate move, gaining a tempo on this queen, attacking this rook as well. But Stockfish just snapped off this bishop. There was a repetition of a few moves. Finally, Stockfish went to c8 with the knight. The point being that after rook takes c8, white can sneak in with the queen. There's really no great way to defend it. Let's say queen d8, then then white can pick up this knight on d5. So the queen right now is tied to the defense of d5. Rook e8, bishop, so the bishop takes out the knight finally. Black grabs, Stockfish gets running with the king, I guess putting the king on some safer square. This is very engine-like, the rest, and I guess in a practical game this would still, well, be very chaotic, and obviously in any chess game victory is never guaranteed. But still, after a few moves, after everything gets traded down a bit, we see that black tries to get some counterability with his b-pawn, but white blocks it, wins this pawn, gives a check here, and after queen e4 tries to trade material. I guess if the queens get off the board, then black is totally lost. He has to hope for some perpetual check or something. So c3, chasing the rook, king e2, and there was some more maneuvering. In the end, black snapped off the c3 pawn, but that allowed white to win the pawn on b2, gets his king to relative safety, and after some more shuffling, now no checks are possible, and after h3, h5, takes with the pawn here, and in this position black resigned. So probably, yeah, white can keep his pawn, then I guess infiltrate with the heavy pieces. Not here, but maybe this is an idea. Yeah. So let's try a few more moves. So you could even, for example, here sacrifice the bishop in order to give some checks. And well, you are 3 pawns up. So you can see that even a very strong engine like Komodo 2.5 didn't manage to hold this game. Obviously, he was playing arguably the strongest engine out right now. But anyway, I do think that if you are armed with these lines, I think you can agree that after e6, c5, I hope you will play d5, and I hope you will unleash your inner Paul Morphy, your inner Michael Tal, Kasparov. Yeah. So play attacking chess, develop, make threats. Take note of these weaknesses here around the queen side. And I hope this line will bring you many wins and many beautiful games. This was it for today's video. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment, and I will see you maybe in one of the next ones.